You might not recall this, at least not very well, but a little over 3 years ago we were seemingly stuck for over 300 days in this period of time known as the year of 2022. And man, I don't know how we got out of that alive. I mean, you saw the videos I was making back then, right? It seems like nothing happened, and at the same time, everything happened. And by everything, I mean Elden Ring happened. A monumental achievement in video game design, right? A culmination of years and years worth of refining the Souls-like formula, and a game deserving of all the rightful praise it rightfully deserves by right. But you see, I don't care for that. You can sit here and tell me how good a game is all you want, but at the end of it all, you're nobody. I don't care about you. What I need is at the end of 2022 for some guy at a big games show to come up to me and tell me what the game of the year is, so I then don't have to form an opinion. Say, what's this? The Game Awards? Well, turn me around and f***ing this is just what I needed! Hi, me again. The race to the 2022 Game of the Year award was a tight, contested competition for second place.
Game of the Year winner is Elden Ring!
Look, everyone expected this, everyone knew this was gonna happen. Still to this day, Elden Ring is in a league of its own when it comes to quality, polished content and developer support over the years for what is primarily a single-player game. I haven't played any of these games myself, but there's probably a reason everyone still talks about Elden Ring almost 4 years down the line. It's one of those once-in-a-decade games, or so I'd say if Baldur's Gate 3 didn't come out the following year. However, you take one look at this nominee list and something starts to stick out. Elden Ring, contender for best game of the decade already. It's just 2022. God of War Ragnarok, sequel to one of the most anticipated and acclaimed comebacks in the history of gaming, which had also gotten plenty of awards up until then in that very same show. Horizon Forbidden West, a technical marvel which doubled down on what the first Horizon game did, expanding on its scale and spectacle tenfold. A Plague Tale Requiem. Plague. A plaque. An emotionally exhausting sequel with so much narrative weight behind it. Xenoblade Chronicles 3, arguably the best JRPG of that year. All of these games are magnificent, sprawling experiences with gigantic, explorable open worlds and playtimes of easily 80 hours and above. They are packed to the brim with explorable and replayable content, and most importantly, hype moments and aura. And then there's Stray. In Stray, you play as a chaotic orange cat. You can scratch carpets, scratch sofas, knock down stacks of books, ride down buckets, and meow with the press of the circle button. And like, chaotic orange cat is redundant in itself, but that's not the point. People got really pissed at this nomination. They were divided, they were angry, someone tried to kill Jeff Keighley shortly after the Game Awards finished. Some were saying that Stray was only nominated because it was popular on the internet. It was. That's usually how it goes. Some people just wanted to see Stray win so Elden Ring wouldn't, which is petty, and I vibe with that. Stray ended up not winning, of course, but still, you can't help but laugh at the sheer contrast in this list. Stray is none of what defined the other 5 Game of the Year contenders for that year, and the following year, and even the following year, and the year after that. It's a linear game that can be finished in anywhere between 3 to 7 hours, far less than even a lot of the games released years, decades before itself. 100% in Stray takes a fifth of the time it takes to finish Elden Ring. It's a game that offers far less exploration, far less replay value, while simultaneously being a product of hundreds of hours worth of labor, technicalities, and having to deal with cats being themselves. It's tight, confident, emotional, and pretty. But so are a lot of other games. Why is it that this little furball in particular took so many hearts by storm and amassed so many haters based on a single nomination? Let's talk about game development. Welcome to Little Kitty Big City, I mean Stray, I mean A Dog's Life for PS2, I mean Stray. A game that started life in 2015, born from the minds of former How do I say that? Montpellier. A game that started life in 2015, born from the minds of former Ubisoft Montpellier employees Kula and Viv, who left the company to pursue projects they truly wanted to make instead of Space Junkies, and Rayman Mini. Soon after they left, they formally introduced their company as Blue 12 Studios, and a year later caught the attention of Annapurna Interactive, a publisher notable for high quality and creative games like Flower, Journey, Cocoon, Sayonara Wild Hearts, Kentucky Route Zero, Neon White, and plenty more. Annapurna Interactive was also subject to a major 25% resignation in 2024, but you're not here for that, are you? Notably, plenty of sources have gone on record to say that Annapurna Interactive gave Blue 12 Studios nearly complete control over the creative development of the game. And this was also the first game they picked up after being established, which, mind you, didn't even have gameplay of it yet. Conceptually, Stray has you play as an orange cat across plenty of real-life inspired locations, most notably Kowloon Walled City, as it tells a story about humanity, perseverance, and friendship. But as much as the game focuses on its environment, atmosphere, and story, however, Stray has also no shortage of cute and funny moments regarding the main protagonist, with players even citing being surprised at the game's tone when all they heard about it was you play as a cat. Stray was announced in 2020 and eventually released in 2022 after a few delays, both dates being met with incredible praise and excitement from many corners of the internet. People got really drawn to this world, and in particular the animal you play as, and it's not hard to see why. It topped the Steam wishlist charts before release and was featured on PS Plus as well. Animal games hadn't really been in the mainstream in quite honestly ever, and it was particularly heartwarming to see Annapurna Interactive also partnering with homeless animal shelters and offering copies of the game as donation incentives. Stray was praised for its story and concept, and it obtained very high scores and ratings across various media outlets, leading it to still be one of Annapurna Interactive's highest rated and best-selling games. It was a weird, unsafe bet that paid off massively, quickly becoming beloved by many, and understandably so. It tells a concise story, plays well, looks great, has good music, and hey, people just really like cats. There were a few complications with the camera angles, and some people didn't feel like the controls were all that great, but hey, come on now, man, you're playing as a cute orange cat, come on now, let's not be so negative, Alwie. Leave that for the following chapters of the video. And so everything was fine and dandy until you. So November rolls around, and the yearly game ceremony, the Game Awards, is starting to pick up steam. People are excited to see if their favorite games will be present at the show and then forget about it right after. November 14th, the nominees for Game of the Year are presented. The main battle for Game of the Year would undoubtedly be between Elden Ring and God of War Ragnarok, of course. It makes sense, and everyone else, Horizon Forbidden West, A Plague Tale Requiem, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, they were just there for the ride. It was kind of weird, had people confused for a while there, especially with the later two entries, but okay. Oh, and also Stray is here. Initially, Stray's nominations seemed to be met with more so memes and jokes instead of actual complaining. Of course, Stray fans were hyped and rejoiced, and it wasn't uncommon to see images like these floating around. In fact, I just stole this from the Twitter announcement. The Game Awards eventually roll around, there's a few awards given out in between the ads and announcements. Elden Ring sweeps, Stray leaves with the Best Indie Award, which, I mean, fine, I guess. I don't know if it's traditionally indie, but Neon White was right there. The show ends and people move on with their lives. But not Stray. Oh no. Stray was still catching strays, haha! The initial title for this video was solely going to be I finally played Stray, and that's it. But as I kept playing, I started to think more and more about why this game had all the buzz surrounding it, as it did. I left Stray feeling particularly satisfied. I finished the game in a set of the flight of stairs, and it ended on a knife cliffhanger. Nice. I hope the cat found its friends, and I hope it can live to die of old age. Credits roll. Despite the issues, it managed to instill a childlike wonder in me of being the savior hero, but you're not a savior hero, you're a cat, and no one else assumes you can do that. It's a primal sense of joy that came from playing as the cat of the hit cat game Stray the Cat. I quite enjoyed the gameplay. I loved the themes it tried to bring light to, and while there were things I didn't quite enjoy, they weren't nearly enough to detract from the overall experience. It was cute, it was fun, and I liked it. However, this game has critics. Plenty of them. Every game has them. And you know, it would be honestly stupid of me to not mention that, given that the video is entirely about, you know. I just kind of want to touch upon why people feel as though Stray isn't as good as most made it out to be, from what I've heard and experienced myself. General turnoff number 1. Stray's slow. On purpose. Being a shorter game, it doesn't feel jarring for me that the game takes its time. I am no stranger to similarly slow atmosphere-driven games. I replay Firewatch basically every year. I loved playing Journey. The best parts of Hollow Knight for me are before shit hits the fan. So of course I'd like Stray. I was going into it with that very mindset. I knew this was gonna be a game that I like, and I knew it would be a game to make a video on. But I am not everyone. I do not speak for the masses, and a lot of the masses say this game is a slog purely because it wants to be. That's not right, I think. Why should this game be faster? No one I've seen say this game is too slow gives me a good reason as to why it should be faster. Stray's gameplay is closed off because it wants to be, and because it fits. It's a puzzle exploration platformer that wants you to get lost and wants you to feel like you're get this. I'm not gonna say it again. Cats don't run about unless prompted with danger or the promises of unending riches and political power. Besides, the game would be over in like 30 minutes. General turnoff number 2. You can only jump at designated spaces. Stray was praised for its innovations in cat control, and that's fine. Considering the development on how cat accurate it is, I think it makes sense. It even won a Steam award for it, so maybe that accounts for something. Jumping only when the game prompts you to, though, just feels stiff sometimes. It feels like there's more to explore at points, but the game just won't allow you to. It's very on rails, which is something that doesn't matter much to me. This sentiment didn't come up that often, but people complain about this all the time, so I'm leaving it here. General turnoff number 3. The janky ass physics. Meu Deus! This one just kind of explains itself. I'm also including the camera here, by the way. General turnoff number 4, a distinct lack of cat stuff to do. This game has cat stuff to do, but it has no laser pointers, no bugs to chase or stare at, basically no sleeping in deeply inconvenient places like doormats, no sitting in places you absolutely do not fit, no attacking dangling wires, it goes on. This is the least important part of this entire list. It's just here because I wanted to, and because goddammit, I'm orange, so I feel like I should be at least a little more chaotic. General turnoff number 5. The price. What? General turnoff number 6. The dialogue. Oh my god, the dialogue. This is the one I agree with the most. I'll come back to it later, but my god, the dialogue in this game can be terrible. What frustrates me the most about discussing Stray, though, isn't even criticism. Criticism is healthy, it's needed, I enjoy criticism, and a Game of the Year contender needs to be analyzed, it needs to be deeply scrutinized, and it needs to be held at a higher standard. But no, it has to be the people who like the game. You know when you like a game that some people don't, so you try to find people who also like the game in hopes of setting an echo chamber, I don't know. I did that because I liked Stray. So I looked up why people don't like Stray to try and see if the same negative aspects I felt were why people didn't like the game. Surely enough, some of it was, some of it wasn't, whatever. However, when you pair people who liked something against people who don't, debates ensue. It's Politics 101, that one sequelitis video on Ocarina of Time. My video on Skate. It's infuriating finding other people trying to defend this game because a lot of people who dislike Stray, who find it overrated or not deserving of a Game of the Year nomination, will bring up very valid points like the short playtime, how the game wasn't particularly emotional for them specifically, how the dialogue feels stiff, hey, I said I would come back to it, how the controls seem particularly lacking, which feels weird at points because you're a cat, how a lot of physics-based objects seem to be missing or not interactable because, again, you're a cat, and all I've seen people defending Stray say is, oh, so you don't like playing as a cat? Or, well, you're not really special for not liking things others do. Motherfucker, is this the best you can come up with? That's not a defense! Thinking about it for 30 seconds, I can mention a lot to rightfully like and even love about this game. For example, it's one, if not the most intricate depiction I've ever seen of a street cat living in a place that feels very close and personal to my own country. The game is fantastic to look at, it's pretty, and I love the music and sound design. A lot of the small details are great. The locations are so fun to just get lost in, and the overarching story is deserving of a lot of proper praise. The themes Stray tackles about humanity's future, while not unique to it, are considerably deep and thought-provoking. It brings up concepts like class-based separation, excessive law enforcement, interpersonal tragedies spoken of solely in terms of bodies littering the world, and what place art has as a reminder of what makes humans human. It's a message that is especially prevalent nowadays and will continue to be probably forever. And given the game's overwhelming popularity, it's not a stretch to say this could be a lot of people's first introduction to this sort of messaging in the game. But people defending this game doesn't seem to play the same game that I did. These are more defenses of something like Little Kitty Big City, not Stray. Stray is not just haha cat game, go knock over that plant over there. It has direction, it has story, immersion. If you reduce it to just, hey, the cat goes meow, isn't that nice? You're doing the rest of the game a disservice, underselling the whole product, and also dodging criticism. If you just keep saying you don't get it to critics instead of explaining why they don't get it, you're proving them right. You're proving them this game is being protected by hype, marketing, and expectations. But, so what? Why does it matter? Game Awards don't mean anything for me, and that's true. I'll play games as I like, and that's it. But I don't speak for everyone. There's people out there who live and die for the perception others have of the games they like, and I totally, completely understand that. I might not care about Game Awards in general, but on the other hand, I care, for example, about Rocket League esports and the teams I root for. I understand why people might get defensive. I understand why you'd feel as though this game being here amidst all these others might be an injustice to all the other amazing games that came out in 2022. Why was Stray even nominated then? That's a question I didn't really tackle throughout the video. It was more so a joke I came up with at the very beginning, but realistically, I don't even know myself. So let's try to figure it out, I guess. Stray evidenced for me two flaws in particular. One is this really uncomfortable fault line in how people perceive and talk about video games, which I just talked about, and the other is finally shedding a light for me on how ambiguous Game Awards can be. Do you know how Game of the Year nominees are decided? I didn't until Stray made me curious enough and I decided to check. And suddenly, it makes much more sense when people say it was only nominated because of all the buzz surrounding it. Nominees for most categories at TGA are decided based on the personal opinion of 100 or so quote-unquote global media and influencer outlets, a term which isn't elaborated on, and I know none of the people or entities who comprise this team. This is explained on the TGA website itself, which also states Jeff Keighley is in fact unbiased and does not hate Hollow Knight Silksong. Given the sheer amount of games released across platforms in the given year, this has just as many problems as it would to have a completely fan-driven vote. And it's particularly why I choose to not engage with these shows apart from mild curiosity, as it's not a de facto set-in-stone objective truth, and never will be. It's especially reflective of this that the Game Awards, in comparison to something like BAFTA, has a lot more people watching it, but BAFTA doesn't have 20 different game announcements in between awards, which just makes me think that people watch the Game Awards out of either curiosity or to see what gets announced. Nevertheless, it seems whoever gets to choose the final nominees for Game of the Year has undoubtedly some preconceived bias that makes for a consistent theme across the awards, year after year. Polygon classifies the criteria for Game of the Year winners, very accurately by the way, as overwhelmingly story-led single-player action-adventure and role-playing games from big publishers with strong popular support and a solid critical consensus behind them. Without a doubt, there are certain kinds of games or even genres that are more prone to winning or being nominated, a narrative I've only recently seen to change with the nominations of Balatro and Animal Well. That's why it can feel at times like TGA doesn't reward the best games by themselves, but rather the most prestigious games. It's an observable pattern of bias. Sometimes the occasional banger and clear contender for Game of the Year will come around and catch everyone by surprise by excelling in all of these categories and leaving so little room for discussion, like Elden Ring or Baldur's Gate 3. And generally every other nominee, with very few outliers, follow this trend. In terms of all this then, what does Stray offer? Well, the playtime is minimal at best and the replayability is near zero, so cross off both of those. It had a big publisher backing it, leading to a lot of marketing. It is story and atmosphere driven, and it is single player. So what we're left with is that and popularity. And Stray was massively popular, undoubtedly so, don't get me wrong. But it still feels like it didn't do enough to warrant an inclusion, hence, people complain. So in that same vein, if it barely ticks the boxes of what encompasses a typical Game of the Year nominee to a fulfilling extent, what about all the other things Stray did that are not common with most Game of the Year nominees? Stray didn't force people into hours and hours of commitment and learning curves by exercising restraint. It's not a mentally tiring game, and it's easy because it's meant to be for everyone. If this sounds familiar, let's shift over a few years to 2024 and its Game of the Year winner, Astrobot. Why did Astrobot win? Why is Animal Crossing so wildly popular? Why did the Wii sell so much? Easy, casual, wholehearted fun that anyone can pick up goes a long way, and it commits to that fully, which is also the reason I can't understand why it's called non-deserving of a nomination. There's no contention, it does not fit, it feels like a cognitive dissonance. There's no caveats when recommending Stray though. You don't tell anyone it gets better after X amount of hours, or that there will be a few shitty things here and there you have to get used to. This is as close to a modern plug-and-play as it gets. I personally don't think Stray deserved to win Game of the Year, and particularly even that it shouldn't even be nominated for it. I liked the game, I left feeling satisfied, but I then turned to my girlfriend and told her, I don't understand why this was on the Game of the Year nominations. There were plenty of better games in the year that pushed better narratives, innovated more things, had better gameplay, and overall elicited a better response from me and many people. But I think I can at least now understand why it was there. Stray is a good game. I liked it despite the limitations. It was fun while it lasted. Should it have won Game of the Year? No, absolutely not, and it never stood a chance, but you don't need me to tell you that. Should Stray in 2022 have even been nominated for such an award? It's hard to say. My opinion is my opinion, but it's precisely why it's so controversial. On the one hand, it has technical shortcomings, on the other, it's beautiful, has a good story, and plays well. You can ask different people why they think Stray was nominated, and you'll get different results. For me, just being beautiful, having a good story, and playing well doesn't qualify it for Game of the Year. Just having an impressive development cycle alone doesn't offset everything else. It's not a Game of the Year caliber game, and I at least think it doesn't expand enough on the fresh new ideas it tries to convey in a way that would make it more deserving of the award. Some think it was purely nominated because of the buzz surrounding it and the main character. Some just straight up believe this was a psyop by the French government. But that's just my opinion. I don't think it should have been nominated, but it was. Whatever. Stray was nominated because probably of aspects much more personal and subjectively valuable than any other. And frankly because Game Awards in general are so unclear in what they use as definition for an award. Stray being so controversial just means this problem was exposed in a way it previously hadn't, and would come to happen again with Cyberpunk 2077 for Best Ongoing Game, and Dave the Diver and Expedition 33 for Best Indie. Dave the Diver specifically is still something I am itching to make a video on. So, no, Stray is not the best game of the year, but it's also not wrong to call it one of the best games of 2022. Considering Steam had over 12,000 games released in 2022 and Stray sits comfortably on my top 10 for the year, I think that alone justifies why it resonated so hard with people and why it sits at 83 on Metacritic and overwhelmingly positive on Steam with almost 150,000 reviews. It made an impact, it tried a new thing, it was undeniably memorable. It's not a game that people who play it can easily forget. And maybe, just maybe, that accounts for something. Stray winning Best Indie is still a joke though.